without further ado, I want to also welcome my second guest today. I'm actually really excited about this. We have Tracy Brown with us on the Rehab Power Hour. And there's I imagine there's going to be quite a bit of discussion here with Tracy, but I just want to first welcome you to the Rehab Power Hour, Tracy, to the community, to the Motus Nova stroke survivor community. And if you wouldn't mind, maybe give me a little bit of background about who you are. You have got a great story, and I'm also really excited to talk to you about kind of your YouTube channel and what you're doing for the community as a whole.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about who you are.
Okay, long story. Okay, but I'll give you the short version. So I'm a fitness trainer. I've been training now for going on 19 years, nutrition coach, chef. Trying to think of the shortest version to possibly give you.
Sure.
Now currently 2019, a stroke survivor. So I had my stroke January 25th of 2019. So with my YouTube channel, I've dedicated my channel to pretty much helping stroke survivors regain their independence. And I like to call it, it's a few different names. People call it post-brain injury fitness training or post-rehabilitation, however you want to call it, where we do a mix of fitness, nutrition, and rehabilitation all in one. So from the general aspects of what you may learn at a rehabilitation center to the realistic aspects of how do you get back to independent living when you get home. So the things they don't teach you at the facility. When you get home, how do you get dressed? How do you figure out how to cook for yourself? Just to make things work with the new norm that you never had to think about post or pre-stroke. So now this whole type of situation that we have to adapt to with learning how to live outside of the box. So I kind of do everything with giving the people the outside look of that, since I was in the field. Well, I was in what they experienced, plus my expertise of having the knowledge previous before me going through the stroke. So I kind of have a different outlook on it as far as from where your doctors may have, because yes, you are the experts as you went to school for the medical aspect to teach us how about it. But I was one that I did partial for the school, and then I actually experienced having a stroke. So I have a different outlook on that, which is good, I would say, from my experience, and then also dealing with survivors that I come into contact with helping us look at it from all different ways.
Yeah, this is actually really nice because it's kind of, I imagine the sort of course of the continuity of care, right? It takes all aspects from the acute care all the way subacute, all the way even to fitness and wellness going forward into back, sort of integrating back into the community. So it's a really important sort of area that you're filling. I think it's also quite synergistic with what someone like an Alex does, right? One of those main things that occupational therapists are experts at is that process of relearning the concepts of ADLs, right? Learning adaptive techniques, relearning, hopefully in cases, being able to fully recover those abilities. And in those cases where you can't do that, you learn these adaptive or sort of compensatory strategies. But it seems to be a really nice kind of match there where you have someone that is a skilled clinician is able to kind of take those and train individuals, and then you can come in and help as sort of a community-based sort of applier, if you will, of those tools. So it's really cool. So you also have a really kind of a really good resource for stroke survivors on YouTube, and so we'll be sure to post that as well. But you have so you take an exercise-based approach, and very, very, very synergistic with what physical occupational therapists do. But maybe give us one example of one of your favorite exercises that you do post-stroke, even for you.
Well, even for myself, I like to call it the coin slide, something that I do daily for fine motor skills. And it's funny, did a video yesterday. It was raining here in Cleveland all day, when I say all day. So the video was perfect for me to show the survivors how to react to something as such, and then supporters that may not understand if they have a family member or whatnot. So my hand, I have great motion in my affected side, which is the left. Yesterday, with weather, with the weather just doing what it did, when I say I had probably the most spasticity I've had since stroke in my left hand, like I had no movement whatsoever. So I had movement, but compared to how right now I have access to do everything. Yesterday was just one of those things that my body was like, okay, yeah, we're not working today. So I know how to cope with it, but that's what made me say, let me do a video, because there may be other people that are dealing with this and they're like, hey, my hand was working yesterday. Now it's giving me the blues today.
Sure.
So I just did a short video to say, hey, I'm doing my exercises. And then I decided to record this little piece just to show you how spastic my hands are. And even though they're not working how you want them to, you can still do everything you need to. So that's one of my favorite. And then the general things of really just getting people in the mode of moving. People, I guess not say people, as survivors, we go through this thing as, hey, I used to be able to do this. I used to be able to do that. It's not moving the same. So I kind of jump right into, let's see how you're moving now. And they go like this, but it's not right. Let me show you it is right. But we it's like kind of figuring out how it works for you. You may look at the next person that had their stroke. You say, well, she's moving, or he is moving better. Okay, let's figure out how we can get you to feel like you're moving better. So it's the approach that I go with everything that I've done, even before I had a stroke, with Make It a Lifestyle. My Make It a Lifestyle is, let me figure out what's going to be convenient and comfortable for you to get back to your normal state of mind, where you can figure out that this is doable for you. And that until you get comfortable with, hey, this is my new state of mind of me after my stroke, we're going to figure out how to say, hey, I can smile every day, because even though, in spite of I have this debilitating issue, I still know how to maneuver and make things happen regardless of it.
Yeah, that's such a great message too, right? It's understanding where you are now. I think we've mentioned this many times during Rehab Power Hour, and that is recognizing where you are now. And right now is your baseline, and always making some positive trajectory from where you are now. And that's kind of, I like that message. That's really nice, Tracy. So thanks so much. I will ask, is there any sort of special tips or tricks that you've learned over the years that you can maybe share with the community?
My special tips or tricks, I guess I could say, honestly, it goes with how I just said, like, because we get so stuck on our previous to it, we have to figure out for this new norm. I may not like how I picked up this bottle, but guess what? I'm going to go back and pick it up again. I may not like how it took me 5 minutes to put on a sock versus normally I can put on the top of my eyes closed for 2 seconds. It's just really adapting to, I'm not going to allow these issues that I ran into after this stroke determine that I can't live life. I can't be happy, can't do all the great things that I did prior to my stroke. So really, I just take a different outlook on a whole different approach of how to live in spite of something happening to you, that you can still enjoy, you can still live life. Yeah.
I actually have a question here for you, Tracy, from an individual on the live stream here. And this is a specific question for you. And it says, I know a lot of stroke survivors experience loss of identity after a stroke. Being a personal trainer before your stroke as well, did you experience any loss of identity? And if so, what was that like?
That's a great question. So now I wouldn't say loss of identity. The great thing is, because I've had that mind aspect prior to going into my stroke, that is what took me to the next level. As when my stroke occurred, I was still a little confused when they said, because how mine occurred, I passed out, woke up 3 days later, and they say, hey, you know what happened? I'm like, no, why am I here? You had a stroke. Oh, great. Had a stroke. They had to put me in a medical induced coma because they said I was too active. And I was pretty much trying to tell the doctors there's nothing wrong with me. So that whole thing was, after I came out, after listening to them, okay, I had a stroke, but my mind never really allowed me to settle in and say, hey, I had a stroke, which means I can't move. I was just like, okay, that means I'm down for a second, but I know how to get up from being down. So my mentality never really allowed me to step back to say, hey, this is going to put me out. I had the thought for a second, but I was like, wait, stroke victims, you're saying has one side that's paralyzed and can't move, and then you're telling me I have to be in a wheelchair and to have someone help me 24/7. I was like, nope, can't do it. That's not me. Sure. I was always had one of those brains. I got to get up. I got to figure out how to move. Okay, I may not be able to do it to 100% of my ability, but I'm going to do it the best way that I can so I can get to 100%. Yeah. So I would say, to answer that, I never really lost the identity. I did have those days that I did go back like, wow, I used to be able to do this. So I used to be able to pick up this weight. I used to be able to XYZ. But that also, because I used to be able to, that determined me to say, I can still do it. So it was just a small setback to get up and say, okay, now I got to push myself to get out of the setback, to not stay in that, not stay in that mode.
Yeah, that's a great message. I think, this concept of resilience is so important, right? Being able to kind of take those proverbial or sometimes real hits that life gives us, and being able to recognize that, yeah, let's keep going. So that's really it's a really inspirational story, Tracy. So thanks so much. And we will be sure to actually link your YouTube page on the group there, actually, so people will be able to look out for those exercises that you post and some of that great content. So excited to have you share that with the community. So yeah. Actually, I have a question here, guys, coming in from the live stream here. Interesting question here from Tim Martin. It says, I'm cramping with my legs after sitting in a wheelchair for hours, and yet I can walk with a cane. But recently I cramped up where I couldn't walk or transfer. So I'm thinking possibly my wheelchair is cutting off my circulation. Or maybe, it's a long question, lack of potassium, these sorts of things. Any thoughts, please? Thank you. Interesting. And I may actually get Alex's thoughts on this too, but I'll take a stab at this first. I think there could be a number of contributing factors to this, Tim. I want to thank you for this question. When you think about sort of sitting in a single position for a long time, there of course can be modifications to your muscular system, or your sort of the sort of skeletal muscle system, meaning the muscles themselves, or also the tendons and the ligaments that actually are helping to connect those bones together and the muscles to the bones. And if you spend a long time in a given position, like in a wheelchair, in a seated posture, those things will actually physically shorten. And they will adapt in short time scales. We're talking days or potentially weeks. They will shorten. They will adapt to that. And they'll be able to stretch again. It may take some effort, but over a long time scales, if you actually do this over and over and over again, you'll actually get what are called contractures that emerge. And these contractures are actually a physical shortening of the muscle fascicles, or also the tendons themselves. And so that could be one factor as well. The other thing that could be happening, Tim, is you're exactly right. You could be getting effectively some cutoff of circulation. You can also imagine the sort of the neurovascular structures. And so you can imagine kind of the structure of the building that could be problematic, but you can also imagine sort of the piping and the wiring that goes into that building being a problem, or being a contributing factor. And so if you have a lack of circulation, that will also cause those muscles and you to lose sort of muscular function, which will cause you to have some challenges there. Interestingly enough, there is a sort of, you can imagine a circulation, if you will. There is a flow of information in the nervous system too. And it is also quite sensitive to compressive forces. And you can actually do either sort of transient damage or rather permanent damage to a nerve when you compress it. And there's a sort of a graded series of these types of injuries, all the way from basically nerve chemesis, as a sort of a fancy name, all the way up to these really sort of brute force type of injuries called transections, where you just have a physical cut. But if you've ever had an experience where you maybe slept on your arm wrong, or you've maybe had it in a position for a long time, you may feel like that gets numb and it may have take some time for it to come back. That's basically a nerve chemesis, where you actually have some compression of that nerve and that neurovascular structure. It actually causes that function to be temporarily lost. And so, Tim, it may be sort of a combination of these sort of things, where you have some changes to the muscular system, some cutoff of the circulation, and also maybe some problems with the nervous system as well. Now, the extent to which it's, of course, Tim, yes.
Because I have a custom wheelchair, the Medicare got a really high-end one.
Sure.
Got a Rohu cushion, which is supposed to help.
Sure.
Because, when I get up in the morning, I'm fresh. I can walk to the bathroom, walk over to my kitchen counter, do some exercises. But if I've been sitting for 6 hours, I'm done.
Yeah. I think, I'm not sure it's, of course, I'm not your physician. And so I don't want to make any sort of specific recommendations about that, Tim, but I think it's very unlikely that it's probably a potassium or a sort of an ion channel dysfunction. I think that's quite unlikely. I think it's much more likely due to your position. And I think what can be really, really challenging is that even if you do have a custom-made system, if your body is changing for whatever reason, whether you've lost a little bit of weight, you've gained a little bit of weight, you're sitting a little bit differently in it, that can change the interface that your body has with that piece of hardware. And that's true for anything really. And that can cause, if there's a difference in that interface, that can cause some long-term problems. And so, I understand that Medicare insurance, covers a new wheelchair generally for 5 years, but even though we're adults, our bodies change over 5 years. And so you may need to kind of go look at that fit again and make sure that all those joints are lined up and make sure you're not getting any pressure points, these sort of things. So that would be my main recommendation. I may actually ask Alec really quickly what her kind of thoughts are on this in terms of, well, maybe in addition to what I was suggesting. I don't know if there really are anymore, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Alex.
Yeah, no, I mean, you hit it pretty well. I think my initial...
Can you speak up, please?
Yep, I'm sorry. Can you hear me okay?
A little bit.
Okay. Nick or Dr. Hasley did a really good explanation. But the only thing I really have to add is we really, really encourage repositioning more often than that 6 hours. I would be pretty stiff and pretty sore if I was sitting in a certain position for too long. So you might have heard of, a turning schedule or a repositioning schedule. So even just standing every 30 minutes, every hour, things like that to prevent those contractures or those muscles from shortening is super important.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah, nonetheless, you said you have a Roho cushion. That's wonderful. Another thought that might come to mind is, pressure wounds from sitting for too long. You might see that one spot on your bottom might hurt a little bit more than it should after 6 hours, things like that. So I'd really encourage to allow some good blood flow by getting up and moving and just stretching out a little bit before sitting back
down. Well, thank you. Yeah. But as far as I have that hand mentor now, we know it's doing pretty well now. Look at this.
It is. Look at that.
That's pretty good, Tim. Yeah, that's pretty good.
When it comes to a space shooter, we broke the machine,
As there's smoke come out of it, Tim, you're doing too well, I guess.
Well, Mac's looking for me. I know that.
Oh yeah, we'll say there's some friendly competition. We'll say. So there's a leaderboard, and so I guess Tim and Mac are well adept at that one. So looking forward to seeing what you can do.
You did 6 hours of space time.
That's true.
So I looked at it. She had 500 something. I figured you get 2 points per minute. I said, you're doing this thing for a long time.
A little bit of friendly competition.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think one thing.
If I can put it on.
Tim, let me ask you a question. Actually, Tim, with your wheelchair, is it one of those? Is it a motorized wheelchair? Does it have the ability to kind of tilt? Okay.
They told me if I got motorized, I probably would never walk again. So the whole idea is to help me, but to walk some. Okay. So I walk a little bit, and I do swim therapy, which is the best thing ever. So I'm in the pool at 95 degrees. I'm bouncing around like a dolphin. And then, so my feet are better than my arm, actually.
Sure.
The other night, I was a little worried. It took 2 people to get me out of the bathroom.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, no, Tim, the reason I was asking is we also would recommend doing, if you were using a motorized or a powered wheelchair, you can set that schedule up in which you would kind of do some positional changes with respect to the angle of your inclination, those sorts of things, if it's maybe challenging or not a safe situation for you to get up independently. But since it sounds like you're able to do that, that's a great recommendation from Alex. And actually what I'm going to do really quickly, I'm going to actually ask Tracy if there is a kind of maybe an exercise that you could recommend for Tim to do when he gets up. Maybe you have like a favorite one, so like maybe marching in place, or what would be something that you think could be recommended for Tim?
That's funny. I was just typing it. I just logged on to Facebook on my phone, and I was going to type it. Yeah, I was going to type in the Facebook. So I was gonna recommend that if you did not want to get up out of the chair, like Alex was speaking on, if you want to do some chair marching and really just to start get the circulation into your legs. So I call it the chair marches, where you literally sitting in the chair and you're marching your legs up and down. You're gonna do the chair marches. You could even do leg extensions, where you go from marching the knees up, you're extending the leg out straight. I wish I could position my phone to show you, but you go from marching the knees up and down to extending the legs out straight as you're sitting in the chair.
Both of those things.
Oh, awesome. So you're doing that already. And then also another one would be—
I haven't been doing it, but I will.
Okay. To be more active, try crossing the legs. Have you ever thought about crossing your legs back and forth?
Yeah, you're dreaming.
Why is that a dream?